Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. We are going to get back on track today with deck number 354 with Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Now, 10 mana 10/10, Mr. Ulamog here is quite the card. However, he is 10 mana. Now, for colorless EDH, we cannot have colored mana symbols in our deck, so that's fun. Thank goodness they made the waste here so that we actually have some basic land so that we can have, you know, used to. I think my very first colorless deck was an old Karn deck from way back, and the mana base was absolutely insane because we didn't have those yet. Anyway, Ulamog's indestructible. You're going to cast him, you're going to exile 2 permanents, and whenever he attacks, that is a triggered ability. Defending player exiles the top 20, which is pretty mean. Now, first things first, with a 10 mana commander, we've got to have some ramp. So let's get to the ramp. Of course, I don't put a soul ring in every deck. Well, only actually because I don't have that many soul rings, but I felt this deck really needed it. Of course, the soul ring, Mind Stone, Hedron Archive, Prismatic Lens. Now, Pristine Talisman, we're just going to keep tapping it. I mean, just going to keep tapping it. I don't care if I ain't got nothing to use it for. I'm going to keep tapping it because, life gain is not, doesn't really grow on trees here. Worn Power Stone, Dreamstone Hedron, Ceaseless Ring, Seer's Lantern, kind of has that scry thing if you don't need the mana. Of course, Thran Dynamo, Amilary Sphere, Ceaseless Ring by another name, Urgolem's Eye. Everflowing Chalice can ramp up as you need it. Cryptolith Fragment. Wayfarer's Bauble I'm counting as ramp, even though more than likely it's going to go get a Tron piece. And oh no, I'm sorry, it's basic land, so it's going to go get a waste. It's still, we're probably, what was I thinking getting a Tron piece with artifact? I don't know. Help me out, guys. And then last but is the Urza's Incubator, because Eldrazi is not a cheap tribe, and that's what I decided to go with, was tribal Eldrazi. Now, I do not have the other Eldrazi gods in here for 2 reasons. One, thematically, it doesn't really fit because it's his deck. He is in control. And number 2, I just didn't have any extra copies. So, that being said, I believe we have, the list is on Tapped Out. I'm thinking it's 27. 27 is actually more than I thought I would get. So, now they're pretty much, as far as colorless Eldrazi goes, there's not that many sets that they were in. We have got Rise of the Eldrazi from the original Zendikar block, and then when they come back, but a lot of those cards are not actually even really eligible because they went all colorized, and they had, I say colorized, they were still colorless, they were still Eldrazi, but they had colored mana symbols in their activations or casting cost, and that makes them not legal for Commander colorless. So, I love Breaker of Armies. Breaker of Armies is it's taunting elf on steroids. That's exactly how I view it. Of course, Conduit of Ruin, Deathless Behemoth, Desolation Twin, which we see here in another deck. Now, Endless One. By the way, Endless One is outstanding in Rakdos. If you're playing the Rakdos where stuff costs less for the damage, I highly recommend the Endless One in that deck because it's amazing. Of course, the Channeler probably should have been with the Mana Rocks. Oso. And then, if you'll notice, these have been kind of grouped by set because that's how I went through them. And then we're finally getting back to the original Rise of the Eldrazi. Because, you know, Annihilator was too good and they couldn't do it. Now, yes, those are creatures. They're all awesome if unanswered. However, the big part here that I want to talk about is all that artifact mana. I had all the artifact mana in there, and I was like, you know what? It seems stupid not to have an unwinding clock. Just to untap it all. Now, here's the downside. There's not a lot of, beyond, you know, the mana colon making some spawn tokens, there's not a whole lot of stuff to do with all that mana. Need some more mana dumps, but the one thing that I'm laughing because it sounds kind of stupid. I promise you the card looks better now, all fuzzy, than it does when I clear it up. Because you're going to be like, what? Tower of Calamities? Yeah. 4 to cast, 8 to use is a bunch. However, if you can, I mean, if you can do it with this much mana, and you can shoot down something on everybody's turn thanks to the clock, it's not bad. Now the drawing cards one, really good. You draw 4 cards. It's also 4 and 8. All of the towers from original Mirrodin and then from Scars of Mirrodin, all of the towers are, to be honest with you, I think they should have been uncommon. Because I don't think they deserve rare status, but they're not terrible. I don't think they're common worthy, but they probably should have been uncommon. Anyway, that being said, another, we'll just go ahead and throw out the mass removal here with the disc. Now, thought hard about the Darksteel Forge, and I was almost to the point of getting another Darksteel Forge just for this deck. But it doesn't really affect our creatures. So, I mean, yes, we have a lot of rocks in the deck that could benefit from it, but we're going to win the game with our Eldrazi creature. So that's, speaking of the Eldrazi creature, our commander has a triggered ability. So the Exile 20 and several of the other, you know, let's not talk about Annihilator, but triggered abilities that you can copy with the Resonator here. I'm running 3 equipment. The Warhammer, more or less for the trample and, you know, with a side dish of lifelink. The Whisper Silk Cloak, because, you know, I mean, we do have a 10/10 general. So giving it unblockable is kind of not bad. And the Hedron Matrix, which was, you know, specifically made for Eldrazi, because why not? Mana cost. Now, y'all know I talked about Door of Destinies in the Elf deck, but this is a completely different story. You can actually play the Door of Destiny first and not having blown your entire hand on cheap creatures, because let's face it, there ain't a whole lot of cheap Eldrazi in here, as you saw. I felt like thematically I had to use the Eldrazi Monument because it's just, I mean, it's the Eldrazi Monument. Now, our favorite 5 mana, I win the game sorcery, that's pretty much what it is. Now, the beautiful part here is those spawns and the scions are Eldrazi scions and Eldrazi spawns. So the more of those you get, you know, I mean, if I have a hand with the coat and I have some token makers, you bet I'm going to abuse them token makers. Sure enough. Now, here's the smallest category that we got with Eldrazi, which is instants and sorceries. Sorceries. Gruesome Slaughter. This can actually end up being a Wrath of God. That's kind of how it was pretty much designed. But you got to have a lot of Eldrazi on the board to do it. Your Eldrazi just, they don't really fight, they bite. that's the word. They bite people. And then the other sorcery is, of course, the invasion. Now, you get 5 of these Eldrazi spawns, so that really works good with the coat. Now, let's go for the instance. Of course, slight removal in the +3, -3. Hardcore removal in the get that thing out of here. If I can target it, it's going down. I love Sky from Existence. I mean, I say I love it. It's not something, I mean, it's super common. We've all got a bunch of these. I don't run it in every deck. Maybe I should actually start running a bunch of these in like the mana intensive, like in the elf decks and in big mana black, things like that, that I generate a ton of mana. Maybe Scours is not that bad. I mean, it is exile target permanent for 7 mana, though. I mean, instant speed. I don't know. I'll probably talk myself out of it. Not of this world. It is a counterspell that is free if it targets a big guy. Costs 7 or more. I mean, hey, why not? Warping Whales. We get our first modal spell, And our last card is Titan's Presence. Yeah, I mean, we can always pretty much totally do this. Now let's look at our non-basic lands. In this deck, there's a bunch. So we're going to start with a good old favorite, the tower, the power plant, and the mine. Because, yeah, there's no real way to search them up, but you know what? If it happens, it happens. And there's a few cards that care about waste, but outside of that, not so much. It might as well just be another colorless land. So even in worst case scenario, still not that bad. We have Spawning Bed. Here again, it's going to make some more of the tokens. Buried Ruin. I'm going to bet 9 times out of 10 this is going to go get back the clock somebody blew up. Rogue's Passage. Commander damage, anyone? Ruins of Orin Reef. Now, I realize the Eldrazi drained out all the color from Orin Reef here, the Vastwood, but the green version is so much better because the green version puts a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that come into play this turn. And this one, you just put a +1/+1 counter on a colorless creature. So I almost didn't play it simply because it does come into play tapped. But I was like, late game, you got enough mana. It could be the difference in Ulamog hitting twice for commander damage and hitting 3 times. Because he has a 10/10, and that's only 20 damage, if he's unblocked twice. So that's kind of the only reason that kind of tipped it over for me was that extra 1 damage. Now, Tomb of the Spirit Dragon, just good old-fashioned life gain there. That's all it is. Forge of Heroes, same thing. That extra 1 point. Mirror Pool. We're going to copy something. Now, Sanctum of Ugin. You cast a colorless spell, you get to sack it, and tutor up a creature. In our deck, it's any creature, because they're all colorless. Now, let's look at the 2 mana lands. Yes, I am running the Temple of False God, no matter how bad it is. In this deck, it's not so bad. Eldrazi Temple. To cast Eldrazi or activate Eldrazi. So, I mean, we can't use this for our rocks and stuff, but, we can still use it for a good chunk of our deck. And then, last card is Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. This is just about always going to add 2, yeah. Cast colorless spells. No, in this deck it will always add 2 if you've got 7 or more lands. This is kind of I don't know. Is it worse Temple of the False God? I mean, it's kind of play on the name. I don't know. Anyway, not real excited about him, but I didn't. I mean, I really wanted to go tribal Eldrazi, and he just happened to be the one. That is all I have got for today. I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think. But I think we're going to shuffle and cut.